Identical twins of Reddit who own a pet after living separately. What was your pet's reaction when it saw two owners? Long time ago my grandfather had a dog that went with him to work the fields on his farm. He passed away and dog stayed with my father and his mother. G-father's brother came up the driveway one day to visit, walking and looking like my G-pa. The dog went crazy in the house. She was barking and going from window to window. They finally let her out as he was walking up the steps to the porch. She ran up to him all excited until she saw it wasn't her master. It was like someone had kicked her. The tail went under and she slowly walked over to her bed and laid down in her sadness. Oh my goodness. I felt so terrible for the dog. Take my sat up vote. My dad and my uncle were identical twins. Their voices sound so similar even my mom would get confused before the invention of caller ID. My dad passed away last year, and when my uncle came over the family beagle didn't notice, but when my uncle spoke he perked up. But then he would go and sniff him and get sad again. Something I've never considered, how does your mom handle seeing your uncle? I imagine seeing your dead significant other in their twin can be hard to handle. Not to step on your loss. Please ignore if need be. I can't say for sure. I know for me, I only get confused for a brief flash, seeing my uncle out of the corner of my eye and thinking it's my dad. But by the time I fully turn and really look I clearly understand it's my uncle. He's a completely different person even though he talks, sounds, speaks, acts, behaves, believes, and sometimes even thinks the same way my dad did. Maybe because I learned the subtleties between them as a baby they are so deeply ingrained as two different people in my mind that I can never really confuse them. Sometimes though, if I close my eyes and don't breathe, they wore different deodorant. A hug from my uncle feels very much like a hug from my dad. The first oddly specific AskReddit I am qualified to answer. My dog lost his mind when my twin came to visit. He excitedly dashed back and forth between the two of us, thrilled to see us both. Then again, Hess a golden retriever, so he does that with everyone. Edit, typo. My twin and I have lived separately and together several times. My dog treated my sister and me like two separate members of the same family, but both our cats, one is mine, one is hers, have made it clear from the beginning the other twin is a second-class citizen. We have exactly the same voice, so when we visit each other Therese about 1 minute of why are there two of you and then it's business as usual. My dog used to do a weird thing. If he is on my uncle's lap and my dad walks in, he'll switch to my dad's lap and vice versa. So the idea of second-class citizen from dog's perspective keeps changing time to time. Lol. Probably just wants the newcomer to feel welcome. That just warms my heart. I love you from here to the stars, I love you to Saturn and Pluto and Mars, and that's why I want you to know that it's true, I love you forever, and now I love you. Equally relevant to my last 3 relationships. I have an identical twin. My sister decided to try and surprise me by coming to visit from out of state. She had a key, and my dog growled and barked at her and wouldn't let her in while I was in the shower. Lol, he didn't care if she looked and sounded like me, she wasn't coming in unless I let her. Edit, I get it guys, it's the smell. Lol. What a good boy. Hess the best. My sister's dog was confused for a second because we sound alike. But then he realized I wasn't her but similar, so he also adores me. Sometimes when I'm visiting and he gets in trouble with her he comes to find me and climbs in my lap. He only weighs 100 pounds. My sister and I aren't twins, but we look very similar and sound nearly identical. Before I moved halfway across the country and developed an accent, we did sound identical. She has 6 dogs, and all of them took an immediate liking to me the first time they heard me speak. I sound like mom, so I must be good people. I'm an identical twin. My dogs had no issues distinguishing between me and my sister. They could tell by smell. My partner is an identical twin. Our dog hates his twin and won't let him in the house, and our cat loves him. Edit, I've evidently confused a lot of people. Partner has a twin brother. Neither use Reddit, so I answered from my perspective. I am not a twin. I am not dating any of my relatives. The cat loves him out of spite. Oh, the dog hates this one. Welcome to our humble home, imposter. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Identical twin here. It's weird because my dog loves me but hates my sister. Like, when she comes around he growls at her and barely lets her touch him. I have no idea why. He isn't like this to the rest of my family or friends. Maybe he thinks she is an imposter. Lamau, we have no idea. I would almost guarantee it's because she's almost identical to you but not quite the same. It's probably real confusing for the poor little guy. Have you ever heard of the uncanny valley? It's probably something like that. It makes me think of Capgras delusion, where a person has a feeling that something is just off about someone they're familiar with and can't help but feel that they're actually an imposter impersonating their loved one. Disclaimer, that's a simplified explanation. Moreover, I don't personally have any experience with this. I've just heard of it and found it terrifying and fascinating. Mostly terrifying. This reminds me of a movie I recently watched. I can't remember the name though. It's about a woman that replaces another woman, for a reason I don't remember, and while the father doesn't realize it's someone else, the mother does. She can't pinpoint what exactly it is because the impersonator is really convincing, but something just feels off. The mother ends up getting a diagnosis and having to stay in a psychiatric hospital. Edit, I remember the name. It's not a movie, it's a manga named Kasane. The MC, Kasane, can switch faces with someone else. She usually captures someone and completely steals their life, in order to become a famous actress. She is basically the best actress you can think of, but her face is disfigured so nobody would accept her, hence why she changes faces with more beautiful women. So not only is she a brilliant actress who studied the life of her subject intensively before taking over, she also literally has the face of the daughter, which makes it so convincing, and horrifying for the mother. Quite scary. But it's a good read, I recommend it. Reminds me of the movie Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal I watched a few days ago where a history professor finds his doppelganger, even though the plot is deeper than that. I'm not gonna spoil it. My mom is an identical twin. My childhood cat Linus was a total scaredy cat, abused at an early age and terrified of new people, but an absolute sweetheart with us. When my aunt came to visit for the first time, Linus walked right up to her and snuggled against her leg. She started scratching him and all was going great until he saw my mom. Cue very quick back and forth head turns, followed by running up the stairs and hiding for hours. Poor baby. We never had pets growing up, so my twin was pretty nervous. My wife's 9-pound Pomeranian could smell his fear and preyed on it. I'm trying hard to imagine a 9 pounds Pomeranian prey on anything, but I am not having much success. TBF, they can be pretty vicious little assholes. They were bred for war, never intended for civilian ownership. Cry havoc. And let's slip the dogs of hell. Dogs of war. Or hogs. Or whatever farm animal of war. My grandfather had a younger brother whose voice sounded indistinguishable from his own, to all us humans anyway. They were not twin-like in appearance, nor scent, one assumes. One day our big studly master of his domain German Shepherd catches Uncle Reggie on the front porch and starts going at him and Uncle Reggie says, "Oh Scout, now stop that." And Scout did the full cartoon stop, head sideways, and that whimper that sounds like a question mark. So his appearance wasn't mistaken by the dog at all, but he did confuse the hell out of him with the identical voice. My sister and I have identical voices as well. We're 2 years apart and really look nothing alike. While it's never affected a pet and our family is mostly used to it, her boyfriend of 10 years still freaks out when we have a conversation. Especially when he can't see who's talking. We find it hilarious when we're in the back of the car and he says we need to start announcing who's speaking each time so he stops getting confused. He says it sounds like some crazy person talking to themselves. Double points for when we say the same thing at the same time. Which is quite often. Okay. You two need to just stop that. Good times. My nephew would let me comfort him as an infant because I sound so much like my sister. He definitely would end up doing a double take looking between us when he bothered actually looking and realized I wasn't her though. My wife and her older sister look and sound alike, and when we took our 1-year-old son to meet her for the first time he went to her willingly, then paused and looked up at her, then looked back at mom, then back at her, back at mom and then gave up and started to cry because he was so confused. Something like this?